Hello and welcome to the Intel Brief. Today is Wednesday, the 29th of July. I'm your host Daniel, and today we're going to talk about a Chinese satellite firm has helped target US troops, Japan is building its first spy agency since World War II, and the UK and EU have sanctioned Russian FSB hackers. So firstly, a Chinese geospatial firm called Miza Vision publicly posted satellite imagery and AI analysis tracking US aircraft, warships, and bases across the Gulf. US intelligence assessed that Iranian forces used the open imagery to help identify targets during the 2026 war, prompting Washington to sanction the company and two other Chinese firms. Separately, at the US request, American provider Planet Labs, indefinitely withheld recent imagery of Iran and surrounding conflict zones. So what? This seems to be the first case of a commercial space firm being sanctioned for helping target US troops, but I don't think it's something that will become uncommon. With the privatization of this kind of technology, this is always going to kind of happen. I think in Ukraine, similar things have happened where private companies are providing up-to-date satellite imagery to Ukrainian commanders and also like units directly for their tactical needs. So it's not uncommon for commercial satellite companies to be providing this type of imagery. But, of course, the US is going to get upset if it's being used to target them. So it's unsurprising that they've then sanctioned them. State pressure on private imagery providers selectively to go dark on areas. Yeah, it's going to happen. This is pretty common stuff. Google already does it pretty heavily, and now there's other players in the game, so it's going to happen. And adversaries will almost certainly keep treating open commercial imagery as a targeting layer, reshaping how that industry is regulated. Yeah, not surprising. And next, Japan is undertaking its most ambitious intelligence reform since World War II, standing up a centralized foreign intelligence agency with advice from the US, Australia, and Germany. The effort is driven partly by evidence that dozens of Russian operatives have relocated to Japan to buy weapon components and ship them home to evade sanctions. Tokyo is seeking partner help on technology, staffing, and collection priorities as it builds the service from a very low institutional base. So what? Japan admitting 80 years of institutional blindness is highly likely to deepen intelligence sharing with the Five Eyes partners in the Indo-Pacific region. Japan has become a pretty close ally of the Five Eyes nations, particularly the US and Australia. So it's unsurprising to see them so closely aligned on this. The adversary of China is a pretty looming threat to Japan. So not really surprising that they're willing to work together here. The Russian procurement network operating on Japanese soil possibly explains the urgency behind the reform, but I think it's likely to have been in the works already in the background before this story came to light. And a capable Japanese service will likely take years to mature, leaving pretty near-term gaps against Chinese and Russian collection, which, I think when I posted about this Russian procurement network, a lot of people pointed out that China likely has a significant presence within the country and also North Korea, to be completely honest, which I think both is pretty likely. And lastly, Britain and the European Union have imposed their first coordinated package of cyber sanctions against Russian state hackers targeting the FSB Signals Intelligence Unit known as Centre 16. The unit was attributed responsibility for attempted sabotage of Poland's energy grid and water treatment sites alongside malicious activity across several European states. The joint action moves Europe from naming Russian cyber operations to formally punishing the units behind them. So what? This coordinated attribution highly likely signals a hardening and a unified response between the UK and the EU against, state-backed sabotage. While financial sanctions are unlikely to be meaningfully to deter the FSB in the near term, they may have an effect over time, especially if they can find the individuals that lead this unit and go after them personally. and further joint cyber sanctions packages against Russian units are realistically possible as attacks are going to continue. It's also possible they may go after other units that are not related to cyber, particularly sabotage and human intelligence units. But anyway, that's been the Intel Brief. I've been your host, Daniel, and I'll see you again tomorrow. See you.